still do it, and I hope she does.
She's not going to.
I will talk to her like a human being. I will
if
try to have a conversation with her.
If she did this kind of an interview with you, I hope she does, because it would be a mess. She'd be laying on the floor comatose. You'd be saying, call in the medics.
I think we'd have a fine conversation. I think I'd be able to talk to her. I wouldn't try to interview her. I just try to have a conversation with her and hopefully get to know her as a human being. That was my goal, having her on.
4 days and 40 million views after the Donald Trump Joe Rogan episode debuted on YouTube, the world is still wondering if and when a potential Kamala Harris podcast will happen and how long it might be.
I hope she says yes
who
too.
You really are in 3 hours.
I don't know if she'll do
3
hours. They probably want to do like an hour.
You're going to get 22 minutes.
I'll get an hour.
Bullet points.
You know, it's like no one knows who these people are.
Right.
Get into her favorite sexual
we do know who
positions.
Trump is. We do know.
I think someone didn't that call her daddy girl? Didn't they start talking about bedroom stuff?
Yeah. I like cowgirl.
Joe Rogan uploaded the full Donald Trump episode to X on Monday night, and right below the video wrote, "For the record, the Harris campaign has not passed on doing the podcast. They offered a date for Tuesday, but I would have had to travel to her, and they only wanted to do an hour. I strongly feel the best way to do it is in the studio in Austin. My sincere wish is to just have a nice conversation and get to know her as a human being. I really hope we can make it happen." By saying talk to her like a human being, it seems like Joe is referring to how awkward and unnatural a lot of these debates and political interviews can be versus a conversation he would try to have on the podcast, which also plays into why he thinks it's so important to record in Austin, or else it could feel like every other sterile sit-down interview where the two people meet 1 second before recording and sit in big chairs with nothing in between them. A comfortable environment goes a long way towards establishing a quality conversation, and it seems like Joe Rogan is even willing to sacrifice on the length in order for a more authentic experience. No pun intended.
He just sat here and we talked, and they were freaking out there because he was 2 hours late for something he was doing in Michigan. He didn't give a f. He's like, I know this is going to be bigger than that. Let's just keep going. We did 3 hours. I don't know him other than the 3 hours that I talked to him when he was trying to be at his best.
And
right?
Kamala Harris has not said yes yet.
She hasn't said no either. People keep saying she said no. I said I would have a conversation with her like a human being. That's all I want to do.
But back to Joe Rogan's tweet, within hours of him releasing this statement, there were dozens of articles being written by big-time news outlets claiming that Joe Rogan was refusing to let her on the podcast. It's actually crazy how quickly all these articles were published claiming that Joe Rogan wanting the podcast to happen under the same circumstances as the Trump episode somehow makes him a MAGA lunatic who won't let Kamala on the show.
You could look at this and you say, oh, you're being a diva. But she had an opportunity to come here when she was in Texas, and I literally gave them an open invitation. I said, anytime. I said, if she's done at 10 o'clock, we'll come back here at 10 o'clock. I go, I'll do it at 9 in the morning. I'll do it at 10 p.m. I'll do it at midnight. If she's up. She wants to, drink a Red Bull, fucking party on.
Yeah, but I think this idea that you're being a diva is silly because you're offering her the opportunity to do exactly what the other candidate did, right?
Well, she actually reached out when she found out that he was coming on. So their camp reached out to me. So I said, great, I would love to talk to her. But it was very difficult to tie it down, and they wanted to travel. And see, the thing is, like, you can't, if I go somewhere, then there's going to be other people in the room. And they want to control a lot of things, I'm sure, according to the Brett Breyer interview on Fox, like, people were waving them off. That's a distraction.
Sometimes it's just mind-boggling to see this kind of stuff be laid out and exposed in the broad daylight. It's almost like they don't think we have access to the internet and can't find Joe Rogan's tweet literally explaining the truth.
It's because they just need people to click on the links. They're fucking starving. They're all going under. The LA Times just fired a bunch of people. Newspapers are barely hanging in.
So my question to you is, like, you don't think it has anything to do with censoring information?
No, it does, for sure.
The absolute dismantling of the mainstream media by comedians of all people during this election has been pure bliss to watch unfold. And as if you need any more examples of these networks being absolute scum, this next thing is really gonna chap your ass, because MSNBC is up to their usual fuckery. But before I even read this article, I just want to clarify that the news is supposed to be objectively and honestly reporting what is going on in this country to us citizens so we can inform informally make decisions on what to do with our vote, our money, our support, everything. Okay, so MSNBC, who again claims to be non-biased, wrote an article with the headline reading, "Why Harris and Beyonce was a bigger deal than Trump and Rogan." And yes, I made sure to check this was not satire. Two headline-grabbing events took place Friday in the race for president. Republican Donald Trump sat down for a 3-hour interview with popular podcast host Joe Rogan, and Vice President Kamala Harris held the largest event of her campaign, a massive rally in Houston featuring hometown hero Beyonce and attended by an estimated 30,000 people. So right off the bat, a very cold description of one event and a glowing review of the other. If the goals of these two events were simply to generate media coverage, then it was just about a tie. That is just completely false. The Joe Rogan episode is already well over 40 million views on YouTube, and the Beyonce appearance at the rally struggled to pass 1 million views in 3 days, and that's just YouTube. But each campaign was seeking to increase vote turnout in this close election. Given those goals, the Harris-Beyonce rally will likely go down as the bigger winner than the Trump-Rogan interview. We can't know until all the votes are counted which event, if either, helped increase turnout, if we even know then. So basically just admitting your own article doesn't even really make sense. But look at the focus of these two events and ask yourself which one offered a message that would animate more people to get off the couch, head to the polls, and wait on long lines to vote. The answer should be obvious. It wasn't Trump's interview. Trump may be pleased with the media coverage his interview with Rogan attracted, and even Sunday's rally since he loves when people are talking about him, but voters win elections. And I think Harris's focus on reproductive freedoms with a megastar by her side is the more likely way to turn out and not to turn off voters. By the way, a dude wrote this. When I first saw Joe's tweet about how hard he was trying to make this Kamala Harris podcast happen, I honestly thought that maybe a part of this video would include how Joe Rogan trying so hard to give an equal shot to both candidates during this election would maybe even change the mainstream propagandist view of Joe Rogan after all. Turns out I'm a dumbass because instead they just quadrupled down on putting out literally fake information. It's all absurd and easy to avoid, and there's no point in letting it ruin your day. But the fact that they're allowed to do this, and with so many people out there who only glance at headlines and automatically assume they know enough to die on the hill, it's just honestly insane that this type of behavior is not illegal for both sides.
It's not a small thing. It's a real lie, and it's a lie that changes other people's opinion. You take what's perceived to be an influential person and you distort their views in either a way to shame them, make them look bad, or to promote someone else. Like, that's a real lie. That's a dangerous lie. It's a real offense. And I think that there's no laws against that right now. It's except libel law. I mean, you could take someone to court, I guess. But it's a real bad thing. It's a real gross lie. And it's used right now to manipulate public opinion.
Obviously, it remains to be seen what will happen with Kamala Harris on JRE. An hour-long podcast is not ideal, but it would still be cool for Joe Rogan to be able to say he had both presidential candidates on his podcast within a week of each other, even though some people are saying Kamala going on the Joe Rogan Experience would end up helping Trump in the end, which is kind of a funny take. If you want a full breakdown of Donald Trump's appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience, including some of the crazier aftermath that's come out since, check out the video that'll be on the end screen right after this. And if you want to support an independent media organizations instead of all this corporate bullshit, go to our Patreon, the link is down below, starts at just $3, and there's a ton more comedy news content there. Thanks for watching.
At Joke World. That's it, at Joke World.
And the world is WRLD.
That's a great YouTube channel, Joke World. Check it out.